Dana and I met in high school, and we had planned a whole life together. We wanted to be in full-time ministry. We got married, and we started traveling and touring all over the world together for 10 years. We had a plan for our life, and God was actually doing it. And everything was going according to plan in my life. I had 2 kids and a wife, and I was touring and traveling and writing songs, and just felt like I was doing everything that God had called me to do. And then suddenly, Dana started having trouble swallowing. We called our doctor, and they said to go to the ER immediately, which was shocking. I didn't think it was something urgent. She was just having a little trouble swallowing. We went to the ER, and they started running tests, and they found out she was bleeding internally, and they couldn't figure out why, and just test after test, and kept getting worse and worse news. And suddenly it was 3 days we were there. And I'll never forget, I walked into the endoscopy ward of the hospital, and the doctor was just really direct. And he said, "Well, Nate, we found a huge tumor in there. I'm 99% sure it's cancer, but she's young, we'll treat it aggressively." So I'd start the prayer chain. Dana was laying on the table, and they pulled the camera out, and as she was coming to from the anesthesia, she said, "Did they say cancer?" And I said, "Yeah, they did." And she just melted into a puddle and started weeping. And as I wrapped my arms around her to comfort her, all these questions started coming to my mind, like, "God, where are you? Like, we're in ministry, and like, this doesn't happen to us." I had this almost like an arrogance, like, this happens to other people, this doesn't happen to me. Like, what are you doing, God? Before they could even figure out how to treat it, it had graduated to stage 4 esophageal cancer and spread to her stomach and then to her liver, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And we felt like we were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. God wasn't gonna keep us from the fire. He was gonna meet us in it. And so we went in this fire together, and the Spirit of God was all around it, man. He never left us. He never forsaked us. Everything was just so surrounded by love and goodness and joy, even though the cancer wasn't going away. The chemo and the treatments were probably gonna take her life quicker than the cancer would. And her body was so broken down that she couldn't fight anymore. And so we decided through lots of prayer, and the doctor honestly said we just really didn't have a choice. We had to pull all treatments and just let Dana live out her days in peace, without needles, without chemotherapy. She lost her hair and went through that whole process. We just decided we were just gonna enjoy what we could until the Lord took her home. I remember that the night that she passed, there was so much peace in our house when she passed. And that night, I started walking up those same stairs that I had sprinted up 1,000 times to care for her, knowing that at the top of them, she wasn't there. I'll never forget, I turned the corner to come into the room, and this peace just washed over me. And it was like, it wasn't terrifying, it wasn't dreadful, it was beautiful. It was so calming. And I slept like a baby that night. I couldn't believe it, that God had met me there. I love what the Bible says, that blessed are those who mourn, for they are comforted. Like, how can that be? How can you be blessed when you mourn? For someone to mourn, someone has to pass away. And yet this beautiful, gorgeous peace just settled over my heart, and it wasn't terrifying. It was like the empty bed where she had laid for 15 months and suffered was like an empty tomb. Like, she had risen, man. She was gone, but she was home, and she was at the feet of Jesus. Dana was such a meticulous planner that she even wanted to plan my future without her. And we would have these conversations, and looking back, it seems crazy now, but that was part of, like, God just allowed us to grieve together as a family. And we would talk about my future wife and what she might be like, and we would talk with the kids about what it would be like to have a stepmom. And Dana would actually pray for, with this group of women that came to our house to do a Bible study every week, she would pray for my future wife. A few months after Dana had passed, this gracious, amazing woman that sat with my family and planned the funeral and walked us through all that stuff started coming to our church. We just said hi to each other, and once in a while we would text. It was nothing special. She called me Mr. Edmonds a lot because she was the funeral planner. Amy just kept coming up in my heart. This lady that was so gracious to my family and just held our hand through one of the darkest times of our lives. I couldn't get her off my mind, and I was like, God, am I crazy? Like, am I having feelings for this woman? I haven't dated in 19 years. I don't know what this is supposed to feel like. And I just felt like the Lord said to text her. And so I sent her a text, and I said, "You're a very puzzling woman, Amy," or something like that. I said, "Tell me more about yourself." My family, my sisters, I have 4 sisters, when they met her, were hugging her and crying because they had never seen me like this. God was just speeding us up. We couldn't control it. It was like we just wanted to be together. And so from the first date to our marriage was 30 days. We got married in 30 days, and we're coming up on our 4-year anniversary, and I've never been so fulfilled and never been so in love and just thankful. You know, a huge thing that I've learned about God is just his redemptive nature. Until you've gone through it, it's hard to even explain, but God never leaves us. He never forsakes us, and he works all things together for good. If you just love him and stay called according to his purpose, you stay in his will, no matter what it is. You stay in that and you just trust him in that. This peace and this joy comes over your life that you can't even explain.